Welcome to the Watchman podcast. My name is Teso Nandi. Today again, I'm your regular host, and we shall be considering a very interesting topic, the unusual calling. Before we dive into looking at what unusual calling is, it is important for us to first of all distinguish what a usual calling is from an unusual one. So, what is a usual calling? A usual calling refers to the foundational and widely recognized roles that align with established religious structures and universal biblical mandates. So, a usual calling is often progressive. It keeps unfolding gradually through training, service, and personal growth. For instance, if you look at 2 Kings chapter 2, the story about the sons of the prophets. So these were people who enrolled into a school of prophets to learn how to become prophets. So today we can liken that to the seminary, Bible school, where people, enroll, universities, colleges, where people go to learn, to study, and then eventually practice how to become whatever they trained to become. So the process for a usual calling is one, it begins with the relationship with God, it follows with the ministry of reconciliation, and then that is understanding the ministry of reconciliation, which is soul winning, and then holiness and service unto God. So all of this eventually leads one to taking up leadership position in one of the fivefold ministries that is recorded in Ephesians chapter 4 verse 11. Now these fivefold ministries are designed to build the church. They include one, pastor, teacher, evangelist, apostle, and prophet. There is also the vocational work. So vocational work such as secular jobs, community service, relational roles are also part of usual callings that people can belong to. Having understood what a usual calling is, what then is an unusual calling, which is the hallmark of today's episode? An unusual calling is a divine assignment that deviates from the conventional paths of church leadership or standard career expectations. So, unusual calling is a unique sovereign commission by God that often involves specific burdens, unconventional timing, or unexpected tasks. So, for unusual calling, it is usually manifested as a burden. It comes with unconventional timings. It also comes or manifests as with unexpected tasks. When we start looking at the examples, you will understand what all of this means. So, what are the signs of an unusual calling? What are the markers? What are the indicators? Number one, persistent divine burden. You just have a burden to do something that is bigger than you, something that is unimaginable, something that when people hear, they think you are crazy or not, but it's on your mind. You just can't wave it away. You can't wave it off. Unconventional assignment is one of the signs, one of the markers. So the assignment is usually an unconventional one. Then you have supernatural encounters. You have revelations that are very deep, that when someone hears of it, they shudder. Then there is isolation or feeling of different. So one of the signs of an unusual calling is that you usually isolate. You don't fit into rooms. You just feel different. Then there's worldly failure versus spiritual peace. The world sees you as a failure because you don't belong. You don't blend in. But spiritually, you experience peace because that you are set apart for something special, something bigger than yourself. We'll take 3 examples of people from the Bible who had an unusual calling. Our first example is Abraham. Abraham was called into what we might consider uncertainty. Genesis chapter 12 verse 1 says, leave your father's house, leave your clan, leave your nation to a land that I will show you. That's uncertainty. Just leave to nowhere. Imagine meeting people on the road and they're like, oh, Abraham, where are you going with your family and all your possessions? He said, well, God said I should go to where he will show me. So you mean you don't even know where you're going to? Exactly. That's the kind of calling that that's the mission he was called into. So he just kept moving through life, holding on to promises that kept delaying. And within the process of time, he was tested, he was tried. And because he stayed true, he's regarded as the father of faith. It's a calling that is unusual. Our second example is Moses. Moses was called to bear the burden of an entire nation. We see that in Exodus chapter 3 from verse 1 to 10. Moses was born into royalty and he enjoyed affluence for 40 years. Thereafter, he was pushed into the wilderness and became a shepherd for another 40 years. Now, within the period that he was a shepherd in the wilderness, he lost memory of the royalty he had or he was born into. He became a normal person. No wonder in the next 40 years of his life, he was regarded as the meekest man, a quality that allowed him to guard and guide God's people in the wilderness on a journey to the promised land for another 40 years. So Moses spent 120 years divided into 3 different lifetimes. That's incredible. Our third and last example is Mary, the mother of Jesus. We celebrate these people without understanding the magnitude, the enormity of what they were called into. Luke chapter 1 verse 26 to 45 gives us a picturesque account of Mary's call. You could say she was called into public humiliation. You won't be far from the truth. Because Mary was chosen to fulfill the prophecy of Genesis chapter 3 verse 15. In that Genesis chapter 3 verse 15, God put enmity between the serpent and the seed of the woman. And so here was Mary, a young virgin girl, called and chosen by God to bring about that seed that will eventually bruise the head of the serpent. An enormous task. What was the requirement? A virgin girl became pregnant while being betrothed to be married. Now, that was considered a punishable offense under Mosaic law. We find that in Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 23 to 24. If Joseph had not been discreet about Mary's pregnancy, the repercussion is that she would have been stoned to death. That was what God called Mary into. Then the one that shocks me the most is the fact that after giving birth to the Messiah of the world, Mary had to rely on the earnings from her husband Joseph's carpentry work for them to survive. Now, you had a son who could literally walk on water. You had a son who could pray over a few loaves of bread and feed 5,000 people. You had a son who could ask Peter to catch a fish and bring out money to pay for taxes. Yet, this man couldn't do miracles for this family to become rich. They had to manage through life. In fact, they could not even afford to pay for him to lodge. He had to be given birth to in a manger. That's unimaginable. These are really unusual callings. These are unusual callings. Now, what are the things that perhaps you might be out there thinking that you are called into something unusual? What are the things you need to look out for to help you navigate this adult journey? Number 1, expect intense spiritual resistance, like targeted attacks, seasons of warfare, attacks for no reason, not because you did any wrong, but because of what you are called into. You'll be attacked spiritually, physically, otherwise. Intense attacks. Secondly, you need to guard the secret place, because when you are called into something unusual, you need to rely on God, who holds the blueprint and the master plan for that journey, to continually guide you in every step of the way. So the secret place is where you receive divine guidance, divine instruction. So you need to also follow specific consecrations. Not everything that everyone is doing is right for you, even if they are not sinful. You have to follow specific consecrations. You have to prioritize revelation over routine, because there's no blueprint for where you are called into. Any unusual calling is tailor-made. You can't follow another person's blueprint to arrive at your own if you are called into something unusual. You need to navigate the wilderness and silence period. So you need to understand that there will be a period when it will seem as if heaven is closed. It will seem as if God is silent, God is far away. You have to hold still. Focus on preparation over promotion. You need to prepare yourself for the big task ahead. So don't be keen on promoting yourself, promoting your talent. Stay through the silent period. Then beware of isolation and lack of accountability. Don't isolate. Look for a godly community and belong to. Then heed corrections, because if you don't heed corrections, there might be repercussions. Finally, address calling blockers. Very, very important. You need to watch out for your internal struggles. Confidence, fear. Very key things that you need to look out for. That feeling of I'm not good enough, your past history coming back to haunt you and all. You need to fight it. You need to stay focused. You need to believe God and trust that He who has called you into that unusual purpose and mission is able to get you there. Then you also have to address the fear of the unknown, because unusual calling is usually something that is uncertain. You need to trust God to lead you in every step of the way. I'll stop here. I'll ask you a few questions. First, what is your calling? Have you known your calling yet? Do you know what you are on earth for? What is your mission? Secondly, is your calling a usual one or something unusual? You need to ask yourself. You need to find out today. Thank you for staying with me. My name is Teso Nandi. I'll see you again next time as I bring you yet another interesting episode of the Watchman Podcast. Thank you.